Whoa. We just got new speakers up here because they weren't working this morning, so we really got speakers. So anyway, the committee will come to order. We meet today on two bills, H.R. 3477, the Native American Tourism and Improvement Visitors Experience Act, sponsored by a colleague from Oklahoma, Representative Mark Wayne Mullen, and H.R. 3599, Eastern Band Cherokee Historic Lands Requisition Act, sponsored by a colleague from Tennessee, Mr. Fleshman. On a committee rule 4F, opening statements, oral statement made by myself and the ranking member. All other members can submit statements for the record at the end of the day. As I mentioned already, the subcommittees will hear testimony today on two bills, the two bills I just mentioned. The U.S. Travel Association estimates that billions of dollars in tax revenues are generated from travel and tourism every year. If the heads of different federal agencies include tribes and tribal organizations, Indian country wins. And by the way, I must say that one of the most visited areas are Indian country by tourists, and we just like to expand that a little more. The second bill on our agenda is H.R. 3599, the Eastern Band of Cherokee Historic Land Requisition Act. Under the bill, approximately 96 acres of Tennessee Valley Authority land will be placed in a trust for the tribe. According to the tribe, these lands are historic and culturally significant for the tribal history. The birthplace of the tribe's memorial and museum currently occupies a portion of the 96 acres under consideration. Gaming would be prohibited on any lands in the trust under the bill. And with this, I recognize the ranking member of the committee, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As always, I want to thank our witnesses for coming here today to testify, with a special thanks to our tribal leaders. Like many other communities around the country, tribes and tribal organizations are looking for ways to attract the business of overseas tourists. And there is a significant opportunity for tribes and Native peoples to share and reinforce their cultures, generate income, create jobs, and improve their quality of life through increased tourism. According to the Department of Commerce, tourism was a $221 billion industry in 2014, with almost 34 million overseas travelers visiting the United States. Additionally, overseas travelers to the United States who visit national parks or tribal lands tend to stay longer in the United States, visit more destinations within the country, and are more likely to be repeat visitors. However, there are currently no tourism initiatives at the federal level that includes tribes and tribal organizations. H.R. 3477 would remedy that situation by encouraging federal programs that support tourism and tourism infrastructure to engage with our Native American communities and empower them to showcase the rich history and diversity of the indigenous peoples of the United States. Simply put, our tribes have a unique story to tell, and we have a responsibility to help them tell those stories. The second bill, H.R. 3599, would transfer approximately 76 acres of historically significant lands from the Tennessee Valley Authority to the United States to be held in trust for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. The completion of the Tellico Dam in 1979 resulted in flooding and the loss of large areas of Cherokee ancestral lands along the Little Tennessee River, covering many historic tribal sites. I understand that over the years, the tribes and the TVA have worked out informal agreements to address the tribe's objections to the dam's construction, which includes the land and permanent easements referenced in H.R. 3599. The return of these lands to the Eastern Band will give the tribe more control over their historic homelands, healing from some of the historical trauma the tribes experience, and offering them the opportunity to better memorialize the history and culture of the Cherokee people. In closing, let me again thank our witnesses for appearing, and I look forward to your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back my time.
I thank the ranking member. I'll introduce the witnesses now. We have Ms. Anne Marie Bledsoe Downs, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs and Policy, the Honorable Bill Ahmadabi, that's maybe incorrect, but we'll correct that later, Governor of the Chickasaw Nation, the Honorable Patrick Lampert, Principal Chief of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and Mrs. Sherry Rubert, President of the Board of American Indian and Alaskan Native Tourism Association, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'd like to mention that we also invited the Department of Commerce to testify today, and they said they were unable to attend the day's hearings, but we will provide comments for the record. All of you at the witness table probably know by now your clock for 5 minutes, with the clock in front of you. And as the lights turn, try to wrap it up. I am pretty lenient. If you're making real good sense, I may let you go a little longer. If you're not, I may go a little shorter. So we'll see what happens. So with that, welcome, Mr. Denham. I'm glad to see you aboard here. Mr. Gozar's here. With that, we'll start with, I believe we start with the Honorable, excuse me, Miss Anne-Marie Bledsoe Downs testify.
Good afternoon, Chairman Young and Ranking Member Ruiz and members of the subcommittee. My name is Anne-Marie Bledsoe Downs, and I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy and Economic Development and Indian Affairs at the Department of Interior. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Department of Interior's views on H.R. 3599, a bill to take certain federal lands in Tennessee into trust for the benefit of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indian Nations and for other purposes, and to present the administration's views on H.R. 3477, a bill to enhance and integrate Native American tourism, empower Native American communities, and increase coordination and collaboration between the federal tourism assets, and to expand heritage and cultural tourism opportunities in the United States. Let me begin with the Department's views on H.R. 3599. The Department supports H.R. 3599 and does suggest a few technical amendments. H.R. 3599 will place approximately 76.1 acres of Tennessee Valley Authority land and approximately 19.9 acres of permanent easement to be held in trust for the tribe. The improvements would not be held in trust and remain the property of the tribe. The legislation also provides for the identification and conveyance of additional TVA lands to protect cultural resources. Very briefly, the Department recommends inserting managed by the Tennessee Valley Authority in Section 2A to clarify the lands at issue in this legislation and to be consistent with Section 2C. In regard to the trust transfer, there is one technical issue that should be addressed. The legislation should make clear that the TVA remains responsible for any hazardous substances on the land that occurred prior to the acquisition and trust. The Department recommends inserting a section in the bill to address the assessment and cleanup of hazardous substances. Further, the Department suggests minor technical amendments to several sections in H.R. 3599, and they are identified in our submitted written testimony. The lands that are subject of this bill have historical and cultural importance to the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and we support this acquisition. I would also like to offer a few comments on H.R. 3477, the Native American Tourism and Improving Visitor Experience Act. The administration supports this bill. We know from data already being collected that tourism to Indian country increases the dollars spent in the United States by overseas visitors. We know this valuable information as a result of data that is currently collected with the help and collaboration of the Department of Commerce. The availability of this information creates an opportunity. Agencies can use this data to make better decisions about how to consider tribes and tribal tourism efforts in their agency plans. These improved planning efforts may identify funding gaps and where we may need additional data. We note in our written testimony that any data expansion efforts may require additional investments, but the mere identification of the data needs will, in and of itself, be progress. The NATIVEAct charges us to be inclusive and to consider tribes and tribal tourism in agency planning. Through this inclusive process, we can address the dilemma of we don't know what we don't know. Better agency coordination and inclusion are goals of the White House Council on Native American Affairs, and the intersection between that work and this bill create a strong platform for increased economic development efforts focused on tribal tourism. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer questions.
I thank you for your testimony, staying within the time frame. And the next witness is the Honorable Bill. How do you pronounce your name?
Anna
Tuffy.
Anna Tuffy.
Okay, it's your up, Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for the opportunity. Oh,
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today to speak on behalf of H.R. 3477. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. And I appreciate the bill's sponsor, Congressman Marquand Mullen, who actually covers part of our territory in Oklahoma, for his efforts on part of Indian country, and our Congressman Tom Cole, who is outstanding when he supports, in all ways, but in support of Native American issues. I believe the success the Chickasaw Nation has enjoyed in developing the Chickasaw Nation Cultural Center and other properties in and around Sulphur, Oklahoma, provide a good case study for the subcommittee, and I hope to shed a little light on the enormous potential of this particular piece of legislation. The indispensable element of our success has been a collaborative working relationship with the private sector, federal, state, and local governments. This has required a focus on patience, on building long-term relationships with key stakeholders at every level, and on earning the trust of the entire local population. We started our first economic development effort in Sulphur, Oklahoma in 1972 near a large parcel of land the Chickasaw Nation had earlier ceded to the federal government, becoming first Platte National Park and later the Chickasaw National Recreation Area. Most recently, the Chickasaw Nation and the federal government exchanged acreage on the western boundary of the Chickasaw National Recreation Area in order to construct our cultural center. The unified parcel of land, a tribe owned, was used to construct a $40 million Chickasaw Cultural Center that has hosted more than 440,000 visitors since opening in 2010. The recreation area is estimated to draw just over 1.2 million visitors a year to the local area. Over time, our relationship with the National Park Service has greatly improved. We now exchange interpretive personnel. Preparations are also underway to open a footbridge between the Chickasaw Cultural Center and the National Park, and it's funded entirely by the Chickasaw Nation. This will enable visitors to directly access both the Cultural Center and the park on foot walk trails. In addition, the local National Park Service personnel now utilize a state-of-the-art visitor center constructed and owned by the Chickasaw Nation as their park headquarters. I'm pleased to report that the federal government has received great value in having us as a landlord through the cost savings that this particular facility allows. It's an improved location as well as quality office space. The Chickasaw Nation has also recently spent millions of dollars to construct the Artesian Hotel and Casino and Spa, which is also located in Sulphur. The opening of the Artesian Hotel served as a catalyst to spur the revitalization of the historic downtown area in the city of Sulphur, and the tribe and area organizations have all benefited. We also have a Memorial Day Artesian Arts Festival that draws somewhere around 4,500 visitors each year and is continuing to build. It's one thing to build a series of properties. It is quite another to keep guests coming through the door. Adventure Road is a tourism partnership with more than 220 Oklahoma businesses that was launched in 2015 to promote the Great American Road Trip. The robust multimedia campaign promotes Adventure Road destinations across digital, television, radio, billboard, and print mediums, highlighting the diversified tourism opportunities available within the area from the Red River to Oklahoma City and South Central Oklahoma. Additionally, the Chickasaw Nation launched Chickasaw Country in 2012. Both Adventure Road and Chickasaw Country are fully funded by the Chickasaw Nation. We're also active in promoting tourism and collaboration in other parts of the Chickasaw Nation, undertaking joint efforts with the state of Oklahoma and local governments to operate joint tourism management efforts. Cooperation and sensible policies like those suggested by Congressman Mullen will go a long way toward creating a fertile environment for development of mutually beneficial economic opportunities across all kinds of community efforts. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, sir. Very well done. Mr. Lampert?
Good afternoon, Chairman Young, Ranking Member Ruiz. Sorry, forgot the microphone again. I appreciate the opportunity to provide this testimony on behalf of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. I am honored to take part in this historic bill and feel a great sense of respect for the work that you do. I want to first thank the committee for holding a hearing on this bill and also express my particular appreciation to Congressman Chuck Fleshman, our friend from Tennessee who introduced the bill and has championed it. I also want to thank our representative, Mr. Mark Meadows, for his friendship, respect for the Eastern Band, and strong support for this bill. The importance of this bill before the committee is shown by a strong number of those present here today from our tribe. Nearly our entire tribal council is present, and elected membership of our tribal nation is here today. They're all sitting here behind me, and I appreciate their attendance here. And I'm honored to appear before you today and speak on behalf of our tribal government and all the members of my tribe back home. The Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians is a tribal nation recognized by the United States as a sovereign nation with inherent rights of self-government, much like states and foreign nations. The place of the Cherokee people within the history of the United States is often told, but usually as though we are people of the past. Our true story is one of thriving, survival, and thriving again. Before the U.S. Army forcibly removed the Cherokee people along the Trail of Tears, the unified Cherokee Nation governed and occupied lands that covered several states that now include our reservation, the Qualla Boundary, in western North Carolina. The Eastern Band of Cherokee is comprised of 15,000 or so descendants of the Cherokees who avoided forced removal on the Trail of Tears or returned home from the Indian Territory in Oklahoma after surviving the removal. Today, we come here today to tell the story of why the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians acquiring a small part of our historic lands in Tennessee is important, and why this committee should affirm and celebrate the right and return of these lands to the Cherokee. This bill would return about 76 acres of land back to us, key historic sites that fell out of our ownership in harsher times. The legislation also would grant 2 permanent easements over TVA property to be held in trust for the tribe for the purpose of creating recreational trails between the sites. These properties will commemorate and interpret historic persons, towns, and the culture of the Cherokee during the period from the early 1700s through 1840, and are also associated with and will interpret the Trail of Tears. The properties are located in Monroe County, Tennessee, near the town of Vonore, and are adjacent to Tellico Lake. It's the reservoir behind TVA's Tellico Dam. This bill celebrates not only a time period in Cherokee history when we lived in Tennessee, but also the return of the Cherokee people as a modern, living people with a living culture and language and traditions that have survived from ancient times, a return of the Cherokee people back to Tennessee. Like our relationship with the United States, relations between the Cherokee people and the state of Tennessee have not always been harmonious. Our historic relationship with Tennessee has been a troubled one, marked by Cherokee governance, conflict, broken promises, and accommodations for Cherokee survival. When President Andrew Jackson, who our Cherokee people had fought side by side with in the War of 1812, in the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, our Cherokee warrior saved his life. But then he decided at a later time when he became president that we were lesser people that should not have rights to our lands in the southeast. We moved our base of government at that time from what is now Georgia across the state line into what is Tennessee. Soon after that, we were also forced to remove from these lands. We found ultimately a safe refuge in the Great Smoky Mountains that we continue to call home today. Through all of this, our people, the Cherokee people, the people of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, have persevered and even flourished. This legislation marks a new era of respect and appreciation between the Cherokee people, the United States, and the state of Tennessee. We welcome the new era of relations and promise to continue to work together to improve the relations with our respective sovereigns as friends and neighbors. On a final note, a little over 13 years ago, my friend and mentor, Principal Chief Leon Jones of the Eastern Band, testified before a House Natural Resource Committee in support of legislation that would complete a land exchange between the Eastern Band and the National Park Service. That legislation allowed the Eastern Band to reacquire 218 acres of our Aboriginal homeland directly adjacent to our reservation. Chief Jones promised that the Eastern Band would build on these lands a desperately needed new school system for our children that would celebrate both Cherokee culture and a culture of education and learning. Chief Jones kept his promise, and today our Cherokee tribal schools sit on those lands we acquired. The schools are a monument to Cherokee culture and our commitment to our children's education. With that law, Congress established a modern precedent for returning lands back into trust for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. And also with that law, and perhaps more importantly to what is in consideration for today, the Eastern Band set a precedent for keeping its promises and demonstrating what an Indian nation can do to better its community and society at large when Congress provides the tools for Cherokee self-determination to work. I believe this bill is another such opportunity, and I request your support and encourage passage of this bill. Thank you for the honor and opportunity to testify in support of this important bill, and thank you for the support of this historic legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Ms. Sherry Rupert.
Chairman Young, Vice Chairman Ruiz, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of H.R. 3477, the Native American Tourism and Improving Visitor Experience Act, or NATIVEAct. I also would like to thank Representative Mark Wayne Mullen for introducing this important piece of legislation. I'm Sherry Rupert, President of IANTA and Executive Director of the Nevada Indian Commission, and a recent member of the U.S. Department of Commerce Travel and Tourism Advisory Board. We are proud that IANTA was included in the President's National Travel and Tourism Strategy, a sign of confidence in Indian country tourism. But the NATIVEAct will take us to the next level, creating a law to integrate Native American, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian tourism interests into broader U.S. tourism efforts. IANTA wants to share 3 facts with you today. First, Indian country cultural heritage tourism is a significant force in the U.S. tourism economy and is growing each year. The NATIVEAct will accelerate that growth. Second, the NATIVEAct creates no new programs and requires no new funding. Third, the NATIVEAct was modeled on an existing private-public cooperative agreement that has been helping tribes create tourism programs and economic and cultural success stories for nearly a decade. We know that overseas visitors to Indian country contribute more per capita to the U.S. tourism bottom line than visitors to other destinations. International visitation growth to Indian country has exploded since 2008. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce National Travel and Tourism Office, 1.65 million overseas visitors traveled to Indian country in 2014 and spent $7 billion. And Commerce predicts that visitation will grow 30% by 2020. Most importantly, overseas travelers who visit Indian country stay longer, 12 nights longer than the average traveler, visit more states and more cities, take more domestic flights and rent more cars, visit more national parks and monuments, more small towns and rural areas, more historical, cultural, and heritage sites, and more art galleries and museums. These are the coveted cultural heritage travelers that every sector of the tourism industry clamors for. And these are the travelers seeking to experience Indian country. This is our opportunity for Indian country to prosper. In my home state of Nevada, tourism is the #1 industry. In 2014, Nevada welcomed 53.4 million travelers who spent $62.2 billion. But how many of those millions of travelers visited Nevada's Indian country? Everyone's heard of Las Vegas, but do they know about the pristine lands and spectacular waters of Pyramid Lake? Named for the tufa rock formation in the lake and the only place in the world where the ancient Kuyui fish thrive and where the oldest petroglyphs in North America have been discovered and carbon dated at over 14,000 years old? Have they experienced the world-class fishing of Lahontan cutthroat trout and the creation story of the Stone Mother that Ralph Burns, an elder of the tribe, shares with those that happen to visit their small visitor center and museum. Every tribe in this nation has a unique story to tell, just like Ralph, and an experience to be had by the cultural heritage traveler, whether domestic or international. Tribes like the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe need a boost, and we believe the NATIVEAct will be that boost. Current federal policies and programs with tourism and recreation authorities lack the coordination and integration needed for tribes to capitalize on currently available federal resources. The NATIVEAct will correct that, and according to the Congressional Budget Office, not create new federal spending. IANTA's professional staff and volunteer board provide tribal tourism technical assistance and training through its network of public and private partners. We provide leadership and one-stop services for tribes primarily through a cooperative agreement with the BIA Department of Transportation. The BIA Cooperative Agreement is the model of what Indian Country hopes to create with other agencies and bureaus through the NATIVEAct, making delivery of existing federal resources to tourism tribes more efficient and cost-effective. The Desert View Watchtower project at the south rim of Grand Canyon National Park is a model of what can be accomplished by joint cooperation and coordination between federal agencies and tribes, the kind of coordination that HR 3477 creates. This area is being repurposed into an intertribal cultural heritage center, where the 7 tribes who call Grand Canyon home will have a place to share their art, culture, and their stories from a tribal perspective. Project partners include the National Park Service, a council of 7 tribes, and IANTA, who's using private grant funds and funds provided by the BIA Department of Transportation to assist in the planning effort. There are more native tourism growth stories, many in Alaska and in every region of the country, than time to list here, so we've listed those in our written statement to you. In conclusion, here is what IANTA believes about the future of native tourism. We know our strong foundation of tourism success will attract more tourism investment from many sources. We know native tourism will be a major contributor to the U.S. economy, helping boost rural and remote areas and increasing U.S. global market share. We believe that HR 3477 is the bridge we need between our current success and a very bright future ahead for Indian Country tourism. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, this concludes my testimony on behalf of IANTA, and we thank you for the opportunity to support HR 3477.
Thank you, Sherry. It's very well done. Ranking member, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you. Chairman Lambert, thank you again for coming today and sharing the courageous story of your people. I also appreciated the anecdote about Chief Jones' testimony before Congress about the promise he made and that the Cherokee kept on land that was previously returned to the tribe by Congress. Can you share with us the tribe's plans for the land that will be transferred to the Eastern Band in this bill?
Yes, sir. The lands that are being proposed to transfer today will be primarily used for interpretive and historical purposes and set up for, much like what's being discussed here around the table today, is further tourism. We want to tell the story of the Cherokee and impress upon the people that those lands were some of the original homelands and very important towns. As a matter of fact, one of the towns that is in that area and was flooded by the Tellico Dam is a town called Tanasi, and that's where the state of Tennessee got its name from, is from the town called Tanasi. So this will be mostly for historical and educational purposes.
Can you elaborate on what exactly happened with the Tellico Dam and how that affected the tribe?
There's very historic and spiritual places there. You know, I was sitting in a meeting the other day, and one of our council members, we were talking about a fire that happened on a reservation. It was caused by an electrical spark from a local power company. And there was a very impassioned discussion there about the feeling of the land and the animals and the trees and how much that really truly means to all of us and each of us as enrolled members and members of the tribe, and the significance of that. And this property is no different. Many years ago, whenever that land was flooded, it flooded many of our ancestral burial grounds and very historical and spiritual places. And so this bill today would would help basically help heal some of those scars and some of those wounds that still exist today and some of the feeling there. I think a lot of our people would very much enjoy knowing that some of this land has been returned to the ownership of the tribe.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, I fully support the bill, and will request the full expedition onto the House floor so we can get it passed in the House and expedite this. Ms. Rupert, your association's agreement with the BIA DOT does sound like a good collaborative model. What kind of help and technical assistance are you able to offer tribes through this agreement?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Ruiz. Yes, we do enjoy a great relationship with the Bureau of Indian Affairs Department of Transportation through that cooperative agreement. And so we're able to provide technical assistance and training through the annual tourism conference that we have. We bring in experts from across the country to talk about best practices with the tribes. We bring in experts to talk specifically about areas in which that have been identified to us by the tribes that they're interested in talking about. We do international outreach, and so we participate in USA, Italy, and ITB Berlin.
In some of these agreements, have you discussed ecotourism, where you bring them in? I know that in some tribes in Alaska and Canada, some of my colleagues at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government went to develop ecotourism industries where they would allow some tourists to go and build igloos and hunt and fish and sort of get the experience of living with the land, and learning some of those cultural necessities. Is there a component of this in the work you do?
Right. So in those particular instances, those are tribes that have a great idea of what they'd like to do. There are, as you know, 567 federally recognized tribes across the nation, and each is at a different level. There are some tribes that don't want to engage in tourism whatsoever, but there are tribes like the Chickasaw Nation and the Eastern Band of Cherokee that are heavily involved in tourism and understand the industry. And so we work with all tribes across the nation to bring this type of information to them and to work with them. And I think that the NATIVEAct will only enhance what we'll be able to do.
And will this act also help the regions form tribal tourism organizations, or is it just a federal government provision?
No, this is something through the cooperative agreement that we're working on now is regional outreach, and we understand that each region has different resources, they have different needs, different wants, and so what we've been doing through IANTA is to do outreach in the regions, and we were successful in doing that in 3 regions this last year, and we're looking to increase that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I support the effort.
Wonderful.
Marie, does the administration have concerns regarding restrictive land use under the bill 3599?
Can you clarify the question, restrictive land use?
Well, does the administration have any concerns regarding the restrictive land use under the bill? Are you okay with the bill the way it's written?
Yes. Our technical amendments suggested both in my oral and written testimony, we think are just technical in nature and clarifying things. The restrictive use is not a concern.
When this land is transferred, will it belong to the tribe or is it still under jurisdiction of the federal government?
It will be held in trust by the federal government and for the use and benefit of the tribes.
Okay. And Mr. Bill, what would you have a success story. What would be your advice to other tribes on how to make this work? Because I think Sherry has the same idea in mind. Not all tribes think this will work. What would you give an advice to them?
The bill Mr. Chairman, the bill offers a great deal of opportunity for all tribes who wish to participate in tourism activities, cultural tourism particularly. So the advice would be to develop your assets and access the tremendous amount of opportunity that exists within the federal government. Any bond that we can have as tribes with the federal government and utilize the overwhelming opportunities that are offered internationally, it will benefit most every tribe. In our case, while there's been a success of the activities that we've been involved in, it can be further and more successful by accessing these international opportunities. The success that we've had has been mostly regional. The more than 400,000 visitors that we've had have been primarily within a driving time of probably 4 to 5 hours. We have some international visitors that have come to our cultural center, for instance, but our hotel has experienced primarily Texas and Oklahoma visitation. It's rather unique, the area that we have, and we need to be able to market on a larger level. And the opportunities that exist within the U.S. Department of Commerce and the other agencies that are would be involved in this endeavor would go to improvement of tourism within the areas that we have. Many folks don't value tourism as an economic development effort, but tourism creates jobs. It improves lives, and we need to continue to work to improve tourism. Of course, we're involved in other things, but tourism is certainly underdeveloped, and we need to work collaboratively, tribes and the federal government, to improve the tourism opportunities that exist in what would be considered in many cases remote areas. People will come to something that they believe they can have a good experience, and when they come, they bring dollars with them that they will spend in the local economy. So this is an opportunity for all tribes, regardless of their stage of a development, where they have been very successful already or not quite so successful.
Well, Bill, I agree with everything you said. I think there's a gold mine here. We're finding it out in Alaska that a lot of our international tourists, they don't want to see another city. They want to see part of the history of Alaska and the native activity with our 12 tribes, and they're beginning to recognize this, and it's really a good, mostly summer. I will say I'm trying to get them up there when it's 20 below zero. Not having much success in doing that, but it is I just, you know, if you got any advice for them, I appreciate that, and see if we can't work with Sherry and see if we can't get more people interested in seeing the cultural aspect of it and the history of it. It's quite an interesting history. Ms. Doris?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing. I am from California, and California's part of our big economy is the fact that we have such a rich and abundant tourism economy. So congratulations on seeing opportunities to develop and provide some economic opportunity for Indian country in tourism. Yesterday, I spoke to a tribe that had some concerns about sacred sites that are currently being destroyed by hikers that trespass into properties. And the reason that happens is, you don't have enough resources to secure these sites. Maybe you don't have enough patrols to ensure that people don't have such an easy access in and out of those areas. So I hope that through this process, you will be able to identify areas that maybe should not be, public areas because they are sacred, while allowing for an opportunity for visitors around the world to learn about your rich culture. So thank you for bringing this bill forward, and thank you for the opportunity to participate.
I want to thank the witnesses, and we're going to move these bills as rapidly as possible. They're justifiably have no opposition to it. The administration's with us, and if we can move them forward, hopefully we'll get them done this year, and I don't want to have to come back next year on this issue. It should be done. Now, go talk to the other side so we get this going, okay? Anyway, with
The
that...
other side of his office.
With that, the committee is adjourned.